The next meter we're going to talk about is our dissolved oxygen meter. Looks a lot like the conductivity meter, same basic shape, same basic buttons, and in fact also has a probe that is stored in the side. So this is the probe for measuring dissolved oxygen in water. This storage area, though, for the dissolved oxygen meter is got a special purpose other than just storage. It's also called the calibration chamber. So as with all the meters, we're going to go through a two-step process. We're going to first confirm that the meter is working correctly with a quality control step, and then we're going to use it to measure dissolved oxygen in an unknown sample, such as the river that we're at. So how do you do the calibration? Well, the details are on the instruction sheet that you'll be given for the meter, and you have to read these very carefully and do exactly what they say. I'm not going to go through every single one of those steps, but let me point out some important things. First of all, the meter has to be turned on for a good 15 minutes before you can ever start to calibrate it or take measurements with it. So that means you need to remember to turn it on before you leave the lab so that by the time you get to your site, it's ready to go through the calibration procedure. To do the calibration procedure, you need to know your elevation in feet to within the closest 100 feet. Ashland is about 200 feet, so if you're in and around Ashland, you're at 200 feet. And you need to know the salinity of your water. And for all of the fresh waters that we're going to be working in, the salinity is 0. You need both of those numbers to be able to calibrate this machine. So it's on for 15 minutes. I know my local elevation. I know my salinity. And then I simply read through these steps, the calibration steps, carefully. All of the calibration occurs with the probe in the calibration chamber. This calibration chamber has to be wet. There's a sponge inside. It needs to be fully saturated, that sponge. Not dripping, but fully saturated to run the calibration. So the meter's been on for 15 minutes, and this probe has been in the saturated calibration chamber for those 15 minutes. You then simply follow the instructions for calibration, and when you get to the end, you now know that this meter is giving accurate readings. To use it, you then simply take the probe out of the calibration chamber. This is my river, so pretend I'm standing in a river. I put the probe into the river. I keep it gently moving, not agitating the water quickly, not letting it just sit there unmoving, but just a very slow movement through the water, and I can take my dissolved oxygen reading right off of the front of the meter. Record that on my data sheet, and you're ready to take the next measurement.